Hello, this is Amanda for Fairy Stamper, and today we're going to be using some Lindy's Magicals and some spray inks to be creating this slimline fairy scene. So I'm going to start off with some Lindy's Magicals. This is Yodeling Yellow. I'm just going to put that up at the top, kind of where I want my sun. And then we're going to use the Sunray Crossette, I believe it's called. Again, gonna put that up at the top towards where I want my sun. And then we're going to move on to Grab-A-Guy Gold. Again, towards the top where I want my sunshine. I just want some color variation, and some of these colors I hadn't used before, so I don't really know what I was gonna get. This is Octoberfest Orange. And then I decided to move to a pink, so this is Oom Pah Pah Pink. I'm going to put that more towards the middle. And then I've got Lilac Waterfall from Nuvo. And then Blue Blitz from Nuvo as well. So I guess I lied when I said I was using Lindy's Magicals. I'm using some Lindy's Magicals and some Nuvo Shimmer Powder. And then we're going to go to Falling Leaves. Put that down towards the bottom where I want my grass, I guess, even though a lot of it turned out green anyway. Atlantis Burst. Then I'm just going to take this pokey tool and kind of break up some of the larger clumps here. I really don't like the larger clumps on these powders. I like them to mostly disperse. And then I think my husband came down, or maybe I was talking to the cat. I don't know. And then I'm going to move to some Dylusions and some Oxide sprays. So I'm starting off with Dylusions Lemon Zest. And then I'm going to move to Squeeze Lemonade and the Oxide spray. And then London Blue and Dylusions. And then the Peacock Feathers and the Oxide. And then Twisted Citron and Oxide. And then Fresh Lime in the Dylusions. And then I decided that those Shimmer Powders, oh nope, I lie, there was one more in the Dylusions that it got clogged. I've never had the dye ones get clogged before, but I had to stick a needle in it to unclog it, and then it sprayed all over my hand, and it was a mess. All right, so then I decided that it wasn't breaking up enough, so I needed some water. So I sprayed some water on there. And then I'm taking another piece of my watercolor paper, and I am going to smush it on there. So this is where you can get the 2-for-1 backgrounds. I only made one card today, but you could totally make another one with this much ink and pigment powder. So I just smushed it on there, and now I've got two. I'm going to dab up some of that excess ink in the top corner. I let these dry, and now I'm going to do my stamping. So I'm using the Fantasy Flowers from Fairy Hugs and some Distress Oxide and Mustard Seed. I'm just going to ink up these 2 flowers. There's 4 flowers in the Fantasy Flowers set, but I'm only going to use these 2 big ones. I think I used smaller ones once or twice, but then I decided that they were going to be hidden by my stamping of the mushroom and the fairy, so I ended up not using them. So I'm just going to get these stamped up real well, and then I'm just going to move the flowers around a lot and have a bunch in the background, but I'm not going to show you all that stamping. I think I just stamped these ones and then like one other time, and then we're just going to move on. Just to kind of show you that I'm just moving them around, and we're just going to stamp a bunch of them in the background. Oh, I decided I needed to stamp this one again apparently. Because it's a lighter color on this darker background, so I just wanted to make sure that it showed up, but I didn't want them to be extremely bold, so that's why I didn't stamp them in black. I just wanted them to kind of fade into the background. So we're just gonna, nope, I guess I did. Oh, yes, I did. I was gonna say maybe I didn't show you again, but I did. So we're just gonna stamp these one more time, and then I'm just going to move on. Because, I mean, it's kind of repetitive. But I did want to show you that I did stamp these several times. Just kind of moved them around. I didn't want too many of the same flowers next to each other, but using these two flowers over and over again, they're going to be next to each other, obviously. All right, so now moving on, you can see all those flowers stamped in the background. And don't worry that the stems are like up in the air, because we're going to stamp this mushroom over top of it, and you're never going to see that the stems are hanging in the air. So I'm just going to stamp this mushroom. What is this one called? This one is called Wild Mushrooms. And I'm using VersaFine Claire and Nocturne to stamp this. And apparently I did not stamp it, ink it up good enough. I think I ended up re-inking my pad in the middle of this. Plus, it is on watercolor paper, so it is textured. You're not going to get the greatest impression, but I think my pad was a bit dry. So just going to ink it up one more time, make sure I get the best impression that I can, considering it's watercolor paper. And then we will move on to stamping the fairy, and I chose Aris for this, Eris, something like that. I'm never really sure how to pronounce her name, but I like her with her little saxophone. Just sitting on top of the mushrooms, hanging out, playing her music. And again, I had to stamp her several times too, because like I said, we're stamping on watercolor paper, so it's going to be a little difficult. And apparently I still haven't inked my pad yet. Maybe I decided to ink it up here when I was stamping her. I don't remember. You're not going to see it on screen anyway, because I would have cut it out. But at some point, I'm pretty sure I inked up my pad during this one. So then I decided to take the Picket Fence Studio Artsy Sun Stencil and make me a sun in the corner of this, because I had planned on putting a sun up in the corner with that yellow, with the yellow pigment powders and the Distress Oxide inks and whatnot that I put up there. So I took the Artsy Sun, and I'm going to do the mustard seed, and then I believe I blend out with, with squeezed lemonade. And then after I did this blending, it was a last minute decision. I decided to throw some of the Ranger Holographic Embossing Powder over the top of this, which I think turned out really cool. You'll see me do it here in a second. And because oxides, stay wet long enough to emboss over top of them. But the only thing is that I didn't use my anti-static powder tool, because this was a last minute decision. So it did kind of stick in some places I didn't want it to, but it wasn't not a big deal. I just, used my paintbrush to wipe that off. But it also, because of the way that stencil is, you can see that it's like in between the rays too, because ink got in between the rays. So I also used my brush to kind of wipe that off too, because I just wanted it to look like the sun and not have it everywhere. So as you can see here, I'm just going to show you one that I did, but right in between those rays. So I'm going to brush off a little bit that it got on the panel, and then right in between those rays, I'm going to just carefully brush that off too, so it doesn't look so, I don't know, kind of gave it a almost circular look instead of more sunray look, I guess how I'd explain it. So I'm going to hold it up to the camera here so you can see how sparkly it is. And then I decided that I wanted a little bit more to the background. So I'm going to take this Bubble Zone stencil from a Colorful Life Designs and some Brilliance, what is that? Brilliance Moonlight White Archival Pigment ink. It's kind of got a white shimmery look to it. I'm just going to ink blend that in some random places on this background. And I kind of like how that turned out. Gives it more of a mixed media feel and kind of, I don't know, kind of like little like lights shining through in different areas, or like little orbs are flying through the sky, or I don't know. I liked it. You'll have to let me know what you think. I thought it was something different that I would try. So I'm just going to do that in a few little places. I did end up getting it on some of my black stamping because I didn't mask or anything, but that was easy enough to fix because I didn't really want it on the black stamping. It was easy enough to fix. I just went over that part with some black Sharpie. No big deal. I did that off screen though. You don't have to watch that part, I promise. So I did go in with some gel pens, some glittery metallic type gel pens, and color in the centers of the mushrooms. It looked funny that you could see the stems through the mushrooms. Like the mushrooms are see-through. So I did go through and do that. I colored in her wings. And then as I was putting on my panel, I kind of like nicked one of the corners of my watercolor paper. It must have still been a little damp. And so it didn't look right. So I ended up distressing the edges with my fingernail. That's what I was showing you there. So that finishes up my project today. All the supplies will be linked in the description box below. I will also have a link to my blog where you can also get the links and whatnot, and there'll be more pictures. As always, have a great day.